Hey, what's going on out there, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot. Welcome to the Watch Along Wrestling Podcast YouTube channel, where today we're going to be discussing all things Monday Night Raw from last night, which, wasn't very good. But thanks so much for checking us out here. If you do like what you see, please do hit that subscribe button. We are hitting the road early today on a Tuesday morning here in a very brisk 44-degree New York City. And wanted to get on here, talk with you guys about the show last night. Did not do a live, and I haven't been doing these lives about reviews just simply because some stuff that's been going on in my regular shoot gig work life has prohibited me from being able to watch the shows live, which I guess sometimes can be a good thing, right? You can kind of zip through the commercials. You can also zip through the first half of most of the matches because of the fact that you know none of them are going to end before at least one commercial break. So we can actually watch Raw, a lot quicker. But that being said, last night's Raw, listen, wasn't any good, right? It was a lousy show. I do think it was sort of by design and sort of by, in a way, necessity. Right now, WWE's top roster is very, very thin. They were building that entire show around the Shield. Obviously, I think they were building towards Dean Ambrose eventually turning heel. I think they went way quicker with that when they had the unfortunate news about Roman Reigns. And with the news about Roman Reigns, WWE lost one of their top stars, if not their top star, probably their top star. Of course their top star. The guy who's main evented the last 4 WrestleManias. So that isn't good. Brock Lesnar's the champion again. He's never on the show, so that isn't good. Now Braun Strowman is also out because he's banged up, and he's the next babyface. So the only real babyfaces they have really on the show that are credible from the male side of things, you do have Ronda Rousey, who I think does a good job, but she's the only credible female babyface on the Raw side of things. I Ember Moon's okay. Sasha and Bayley I like a lot, but they're just not put in a position to where any of those 3 women really mean anything, So I feel like you have Seth Rollins, who they built a big portion of the promotion for last night's Raw around Rollins. And then you have Elias, who's kind of on the come up and just recently turned. And then you have Finn Balor, who when he's not the Demon, and he's very rarely the Demon, comes out and he's super smiley, just happy to be here, wet behind the ears. Finn Balor, the same type of babyface that made The Rock get the Die Rocky Die chance back in 1996. And he's kissing babies. I personally don't think he's a very good. I love Balor. Don't get me wrong, but I hate Smiley Finn Balor, especially Smiley Finn Balor after Balor is totally destroyed one week, and then he comes out and he's smiling and looking off into a distance. It doesn't do anything for me. So those right now, though, are your 3 top baby faces on Raw. And that's pretty much it. And on the heel side of things, you have Lashley, who just came back a couple months ago. You have McIntyre, who just came up a couple of months ago. You have Baron Corbin, who actually, I don't dislike Baron Corbin per se. I think Baron Corbin does a good job in terms of being that smarmy heel general manager that you really want to see get his ass kicked and eventually get his comeuppance, and I assume that at some point he will, and it'll be great to see because they've done a great job in making him unbearable. That being said, though, and honestly, kudos to Baron Corbin because when he was down in NXT, he rarely cut really long promos like the ones that he's cutting these days, but he did a good job. He does a good enough job with them. The problem with Baron Corbin is, good God Almighty, the guy's on the screen for about a quarter of the show, if not a third of the show. Last night he was out there. He started the show off, and I don't think he's at a point where he can come out and cut a Triple H circa 2000 level heel promo to kick off Raw every week. I just don't. So he came out, starts off the show with a big promo. This leads to Elias versus Lashley, which Corbin's hanging out at ringside. They then go back and forth backstage, at least 2 or 3 different segments with him. One where he's assigning duties to Alexa, one where he's firing the guy who turned off the lights for Elias. And then this leads to a main event featuring Baron Corbin. The guy was on the show like well over an hour of a 3-hour broadcast, Baron Corbin was on the show. That is far too much. You're overexposing this guy. It's not to the point where people at this point want to hate this guy and you know, you're going to eventually turn this from, man, I can't wait till Braun comes back and destroys this guy, to, man, I just can't wait till Baron Corbin's not on my television screen. And it's not a knock on him per se, it's just, how many times are we going to see Baron Corbin on one broadcast every single week? It's ridiculous. It's far too much. So, that was my first gripe about the show. It's just far too much Baron Corbin. I don't think that the crew of Drew McIntyre, who is, I guess, like, kind of low-key split from Dolph Ziggler. We never really had a full split from there. But instead of now being with Dolph Ziggler, now he's paired up with Corbin and Lashley and Leo Rush, who, kudos to Leo Rush. I mean, this kid's like, what, 23, 24 years old? He's on the main event segments on Raw. I mean, you know, I personally think they could do a lot more with Leo Rush, but he certainly has done at least a good amount for the Lashley character, at least in my opinion. I know some people don't really think he's done a great job, but I think he's done fine. No problem with him. But now, yeah, you have Drew McIntyre, who went from Dolph Ziggler's heavy to now the heavy for Corbin and also, Corbin and Lashley and Leo Rush. So it's like, there's not much heat there. And then, the number one thing. So these guys are in roughshod overall. Raw's done this before, where you're just left sitting there going, my God, is anything good going to happen? Like, this sucks. And it's by design, right? Clearly yesterday's idea for Raw was like, let's build up Raw as being awful. Let's just build up Raw as making people not think there's any good that can come out of this show. I don't think that they would have meant for you to turn the channel, but certainly, you know, at some point, you can't help but wonder if the Titans are coming back in that Monday Night Football game. I mean, nothing good that you really enjoyed was happening on that show. That was, in fact, by design, in my opinion, where all hope is lost. Elias is destroyed. Balor's destroyed. Nobody can stop Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley. Seems like they're just running roughshod. And at some point, somebody will. Whether this happens next week, or Braun Strowman comes out, whether this makes Finn Balor kind of transform into the Demon. Seems like that might be where they're going. And that Demon character at least does have some credibility. It doesn't seem like the Demon character really ever loses. So you know when Finn Balor becomes that Demon character, it's like shit's on, right? So maybe that'll be where they go. Down the line at some point, perhaps it'll lead to Angle coming back, trying to get his revenge on Corbin. And when it happens, it'll be like, well, shit, thank God. The hope they have is, you watch last night's Raw and you're like, man, something's got to happen. There's got to be something good coming out of this. It's just, do people have that connection right now to where when Strowman comes and destroys everybody, are people even going to be like, oh, wow, this is awesome now? Or are people going to be like, I don't really care, man. You know? And that I think is I think the worry that you'd have. Now, they've done this. I mean, if you look back to the time when the Authority was running roughshod over Raw, where it was like in 2013, they had excuse me, Triple H with Stephanie and Orton and Seth Rollins and J&J Security, and it just felt like, man, they are just taking over the whole show. Make it soap water. They're just taking over the entire show, right? And there were definitely some weeks where if you watch that show, you were like, the baby faces, man, they're just in peril. But eventually they got their comeuppance. Eventually Daniel Bryan was able to take down the entire Authority. And yeah, you were at least, like, I feel like people were emotionally invested in the Daniel Bryan character. You want to see him come back and destroy everybody and finally get his just due of this great moment, which eventually led to WrestleMania 30. It is the end of the year. They're starting to build towards WrestleMania. Question now will be whether people really want to tune in to see Braun Strowman come back and destroy Corbin. Like, I don't even know if Corbin has super heel heat like Triple H did back in 2013, or if he just has, like, well, I don't really want to see this heat. And that's going to be, I guess, what they're going to have to figure out is, are people going to be invested enough to care when these baby faces eventually do hopefully come back and take down the big heel group. So that'll be, kind of something to keep an eye on. My major gripe, though, with Raw last night, and there's a lot. There's some legit shit on this show. I don't know what they're doing with this Drake Maverick peeing with all the urine jokes with Drake Maverick with the AOP. AOP are a badass tag team that really should just be totally dominating the entire tag team scene and having good matches. And if you don't think AOP can have good matches, go back and watch some of the stuff from NXT. These guys legitimately can go. They're legit athletes and are badass in the ring. Like, they should have some good matches. And Drake Maverick, even though he's a relatively small guy, does have some credibility, in my opinion, of like a legit badass guy, right? Like, he was a straight shooting general manager for 205 Live. I think people can get into the fact of him being either a badass guy or someone who's acts like a super tough guy because he's got these two big behemoths behind him. But that hasn't happened. Instead, it's this random weirdness with urine jokes that are just, in my opinion, taking a lot away from AOP and not adding anything. The stuff with the women's division where Alexa Bliss, and I get that it sucks that Alexa can't be in the ring, but Alexa Bliss coming out and doing the, potentially taking over the Raw women's side of things is fine. But then when you have Sasha and Bayley doing that atrocious Q&A, and it's just not, some of that stuff wasn't at all enjoyable to watch. But the number one thing, the thing that killed me, was they decided to spend an entire 24-hour period from Sunday night to Monday night building up the Seth Rollins Intercontinental Championship Open Challenge. Now, this immediately piques people's interest, and the reason that this does is because back in the day, John Cena did the U.S. Open Challenge. And every week, he'd have somebody new to face. And maybe it'd be someone down on the roster who you wouldn't necessarily think could have a good match with him. Someone like Zack Ryder in Long Island had a great match with Cena. Or it was somebody who was coming up from NXT, and maybe the guy would come up from NXT like Kevin Owens and have a sustained run. Or maybe the guy would come up from NXT like Sami Zayn, give it his best shot, and then be pushed back down the card. Whoever it was that was coming up to face John Cena, he was having good matches with every single week, and it was somebody different every single week. So when you hear Intercontinental Championship Open Challenge, Rollins is laying out the challenge, anybody can come out and accept, this does lead to an amount of speculation. Hey, are they going to give someone like someone who joked about No Way Jose? Maybe give him an opportunity. Are they going to give somebody, I thought it would be great if they called up EC3. EC3 is a guy that I feel like is tailor-made for the main roster, much more so than NXT. It'd be great if they called him up. Somebody had said maybe they were going to call up Lars Sullivan, have him win the title his first night there, Carlito style, drop a rocket to that ass and see where he could go. There was a number of different ways they could have gone with this. They could have even given an opportunity to somebody like, and I realize Raw is relatively thin right now, could have given it to someone that maybe like one half of the Revival, or maybe they could have had Chad Gable come out with Rude by his side, and then next week Rude comes out, he goes for it. You could have done a variety of different things, and there were a couple people who were being a little cynical, like, hey, imagine it's just Dolph Ziggler again. LOL. You little jokester. No way it's going to be Dolph again. Those guys have fought about 100 times, and I'm almost positive Dolph's already opened the Intercontinental Championship Open Challenge at some point. This is too much. No way it's Dolph. And then it's Dolph Ziggler. The whole day of build-up, and Dolph Ziggler opens the Open Challenge. It's like, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of Dolph Ziggler. I enjoy his stuff. I went to go see his comedy show SummerSlam weekend. I had a blast. I think Dolph's awesome. I think Seth Rollins is awesome. In the ring, they have good matches. But don't build up the Open Challenge and then have Dolph answer it when they've wrestled 100 times. Why do anybody care? I mean, at that point, it's like Dolph comes out, you've got to just think about turning the channel. I mean, the frustration level has to just be through the roof. It's completely ridiculous, and don't get me wrong, they tore the house down. It was a good match, but, I couldn't help but just smash that, I was glad I was watching on a delay, instead smashed the fast forward button. Not because I didn't care about the match, but because we've seen it 100 times, and because I was thinking, oh, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? And maybe that's on me. Maybe that's a me problem. I'm not saying that it's impossible that it's a me issue, who's just continuing to look a little too deep into things. But I didn't need EC3. I didn't need Lars Sullivan. I just wanted somebody to step up and maybe give us a unique match. Remember when Seth Rollins took on Neville on a random episode of Raw when, like, Neville was in his, like, cape period and wasn't really even doing anything? They had a killer match, though, and Neville got a couple of hope spots, and it was like, oh shit, this is fun. Instead, you get Dolph Ziggler again. How does that happen? Like, why build up the open challenge? You want to give us that Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins again? Cool. And now it's going to be Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins again. And it's also going to be Baron Corbin and Finn Balor again. And you're getting the same matches you've gotten the last couple weeks. So hey, if you want to take an L or you want to take a knee on this, at least you know you don't have to tune in, rather than tuning in, getting your hopes up, and then that happening. There has to be people who turned off Raw yesterday in frustration. I don't get it. And I'm not somebody who is a person who is a hard wrestling fan to entertain. You see me on these shows. You see me do Watch Along Wrestling podcasts about random B-level pay-per-views from 2009. And I love this shit. Like, I want to enjoy the show. There's people yesterday, oh, if you're going to complain, that's my Twitter troll voice. Oh, if you're going to complain about Raw and wrestling, why even watch? Well, because we fucking love this shit. And it's totally okay, and I'm sorry I dropped a couple cuss words there, but it's totally acceptable to complain, right? Like, when Star Wars came back with Episode 1 years ago with Jar Jar Binks, people were like, oh man, that kind of blew, right? Like, it wasn't a great movie for people who were waiting years and years and years for Star Wars to return. Did that mean that they don't give a crap when the next one came out? No, of course they did, because at the end of the day, they wanted to capture what they loved about Star Wars. I tune in on Monday Night Raw on Monday nights because I'm hoping for some good storylines. I'm hoping for some good build. And I do that because Mondays kind of blow. But at the end of each Monday, it's like, damn, we get to watch live wrestling. Like, that is awesome. This is something that we all love to do. We all love to watch wrestling, and it's something that we enjoy. But if it sucks, and it's a show like last night, which just gave you nothing, like, I mean, other than a enjoyable Bailey and Sasha Banks promoting Christmas gifts from WWEshop.com or holiday gifts, and honestly an incredible sale for Cyber Monday, there was nothing really on Raw, which you could have watched, by the way, for a minute on any Twitter stream. But there was nothing on Raw that made you tune in and then afterwards went, that was really cool. I enjoyed that. Sure, you got a decent match between Rollins and Ziggler, but only after you probably felt, if you're anything like me, like, oh crap, I was hoping maybe for something a little different. And this is what I got. So screw it. I'm not going to watch it again. Right? It's like, hopefully there'll be things that are good. I personally love to be positive and talk to you guys about all the really good shit that you have to go out of your way to see. You didn't see Raw? Take a knee. It's cool. Don't really need to go check it out. And I don't like to say that. To me, that sucks to say. I want to be able to say, hey, make sure you go check this out. This was great. Watch this angle. Watch this match. You got to go check this out. This was really, really cool. There wasn't really much anything on Raw like that. And that's a shame. And this guy in front of me just littered and dropped an entire cup of coffee on the ground. Have a little bit of class. In any event. But yeah, man. I'm hoping for better things tonight on SmackDown. The Man is back. Becky Lynch is back on SmackDown. AJ Styles is back on SmackDown. And honestly, there's some cool stuff on the network. If you didn't get a chance to check out the AJ Styles documentary, that was fun. The Chronicle on Dean Ambrose, I thought was really well done. There's some good stuff there. Watch that stuff. Edge and Christian came back last night. I'm sure they had a good show. Check them out. But Raw, unfortunately, just didn't do it for me this week. Hopefully, things will get better as it goes along. I'll watch again next week, and it's totally fine if next week we get on here and we say, man, it sucked again. Because that is what being a fan is all about. You watch, and you just hope that the form of entertainment that you love turns it around. And that is it. So, Till next time, everybody, this has been Tommy on the Spot. I hate to get on here and rant with you guys, but hopefully you enjoyed what I had to say. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and follow me over on Twitter at WatchUnclePod, or you can follow my personal Twitter at Tommy on the Spot. And until then, everybody, we'll talk to you again real soon after a while.